Hey everyone, I have a pretty good video for you today. Today's video is on Glow. I will be going over Glow. Glow is for 2 to 4 players. It plays over 45 minutes and you are basically playing over 8 days. So you're basically trying to build up your party by recruiting companions. Depending on your dice rolls, you'll be able to gain some shards of light while you're advancing on your journey to lit up villagers. Now, whoever has the most shards of light at the end of the game will win. But will you be the one to drive away the darkness? Video. Why can't I get that? No. I'm gonna redo that. But before we start, my name is Krissy and this is my channel 2 Sheep 1 Wheat, where we play board games and I review them. So if you're new here and you would like to see a video on a specific board game, go ahead and like this video and comment down below what board game you'd love to see a video on. And then of course, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss it. So in Glow, there are 2 different ways to play. It's basically the same way, except one side of the board is darkness and the other side of the board is shadow. The shadow side, you have camp tokens and you're traveling to different villages. Now, if you're playing on the other side, which is the darkness side, you're on a boat and you're traveling to different islands. So for this game, we're going to be going over the shadow side of the board. So let's just go ahead and take a look at what the setup is for this game. You're basically going to be choosing an adventurer and you're going to get the corresponding color in dice. That will go onto the side and you will use that for your turn. You're also going to get your house and person in the same color as your adventurer. And then you're going to be adding your marker here on the 10 slot of the track. You also get 5 large dice and 1 small little black dice. That is going to be on the side because some of these cards down here will require some of these other dice for you to be able to roll. Now these cards, as you can see up here, I have 2 stacks here. There is an A stack and a B stack. Hopefully you can see that. And 3 of each get taken out of the decks of cards. The A, it goes on top of the B for this stack, and all of these cards are coming out left to right. You get some spell tokens that these will probably come out throughout the game based on some of the cards that you pull. Then to set up, you roll 9 of these dice, and depending which way the dice is facing, which icon, you're going to be placing the matching icon with the location here with these cards. If you roll all 9 dice and you end up with 1 spot without any dice, then you can go ahead and just place one of these little footprints tokens right there. Are basically a wild and can help you out throughout your journey. These will let you re-roll a die. And these are fireflies. Now those at the end of the game, you're going to be turning those into shards of light, which are your points at the end of the game. Now shards of light, you can win those many different ways throughout the game, whether it be by cards or by the board. Anytime that you do gain or lose shards of light, you're going to be adjusting your track accordingly. So if you're here and you need to go back because you used the ability on the track here, you would just go back 1. So that's basically how you set it up and what it looks like once it is all set up. But you're wondering, how do we play? Well, the game goes over 8 different days. So each day has different times during the day that you do different things. Morning time, that is whenever you're going to be recruiting your companions here down. So the first player would take 1 and the associated dice with it. If you're playing with 2 players, after the first player has taken their card, they can choose to take one of the cards and send them to the cemetery. Then the second player would be able to choose their card, their companion that they choose to. If you're playing with more than 2 players, then you don't send any of the companions to the grave. Once you've taken a companion, it goes next to your adventurer here, and all of them have different actions on them. So sometimes you'll get shards of light, which is points at the end of the game. Any value on your cards are calculated at the end of the game. Late morning is rolling all of your dice that you have accumulated from whenever you have taken any of your companions over here. Then you move on to noon, which is resolving any of the effects that your cards may have once you've rolled your dice. Now this one requires 2 fire, which I do have here. So it's really good to get this one out of the game, because at the end of the game, if you have any of these cards, that one's going to be taking away some of your shards of light, which is not what you want, since those are points that will help you win at the end. So this one, if you do have the 2 fire like we do, now this card right here would end up going into the cemetery here. Then once you have used all the abilities on your companion cards, then we move on to the afternoon. Now in the afternoon, everybody simultaneously move on the board. Now you're moving on the board based on those icons that you had rolled on your dice. Now if we take a look at the board here, you can see these are the dice that I rolled, and I would be able to move to the leaf right there. So once you have no more moves to take, then comes the evening phase. You reset everything. You claim your dice back. Any of these little dice that you have, then they get placed on this spot that is now what icon is facing up after you have rolled it. You pass the first player token to the next player. Then you get rid of all of these cards, and they get placed into the cemetery here, and we place all of the companion cards again left to right. Now again, if you are left with a spot that doesn't have anything, then you get feet placed on that spot right there to make it a little bit more tempting, because those are basically a wild token. Now, what ends the game? The game ends once all of this deck right here, all of the companions are gone. You have used them all. That is what triggers the end of the game. So to calculate all of your points, it is kind of listed here on the board here as just a reminder. So once you're able to make it into a lit village, you can bring your camp in with you. Now, wherever your camp is, you're going to be able to count those shards of light at the end of the game to help you win. So if you make it all the way up to here for 20, at the end of the game, you're going to be able to count 20 extra shards of light. So you'll be counting any of the shards of light that you have on any of your companion or your adventurer card. So if you have more fireflies than companions in your band or in your party, then you get an extra 10 shards of light for having that too. Then if you're in a lit village, you're going to be able to count those shards of light that are in there towards your points. And then of course, these feet here, however many you have, those are all 1 shards of light each. So whoever has the most points, whoever is furthest up on the board, is the person who has won this game. So I guess we'll just start off with the things that I really enjoyed about this game. One being the artwork on here. I think in a few different ways, actually. So the companions look just adorable, and I think the way that they were done in this like line art was really neat, and kind of really made the board look just completely different from any other game really that I've ever played. So the companions are really cute, but the whole game just did a really good job. I don't think that we have any other game that quite looks like this. So the game, very black and white, and the only thing that's actually colorful on the board is the symbols and the icons that are on the dice. So it kind of almost makes it easier for you to know where you're going, because if you look at this board, it is quite busy. So making the contrast with the color for the icons definitely made it a lot easier to be able to follow along on this board, which was really neat. And yeah, the artwork just honestly so nice. And then of course they brought it onto the box here too. So you definitely know what kind of art is coming with this game, definitely. And then another thing that I really enjoyed with this game is the way that the dice work. So you're basically using the dice for 2 different things. You can use the effects and the bonuses that are on your companion cards, but then after you've rolled them, you get to use those same icons that you rolled to be able to move onto the board. Now, depending on whichever one, but you also have the option to re-roll your dice so that you can choose a different path, or be able to actually trigger one of your companions, or even choose not to trigger the effect that's on one of your companions. And then once you're all done with that, so you take the dice from the companion. So whatever was rolled at the beginning is what you're getting. But then after you've rolled all your dice, whatever the new icon is what gets placed there. So the dice are always being shuffled around on this little board here. So the meeting track is what this is called. And So it's always being shuffled around. So everything's always different. And then whenever there's no dice that are placed in a certain location, then you get one of the, basically a wild token that you can use for whatever, but is also worth points at the end. Now, something else with this board right here too, that I didn't realize until after a couple of games that we played, but all the icons, like this one is fire, and then we have water, crystal, cloud, which is, because now that I know, the drawing on here is wind, and then we have leaf here, which is trees. So the crystals, we have some of the crystals here that grow in caves. And then if you look at the water, you can see whales and a dolphin and creatures in the water that are just swimming. And then for this fire one here, we have a volcano. And then the cemetery, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. I didn't even realize the artwork that was within the game itself. And then the cemetery is a cemetery. And I can't tell you how many times I played this game before I actually even realized that that was what it was. I honestly just thought that it was just a drawing of whatever. I've never actually paid attention to it. And I'm so happy that I just kind of look down and realize what was actually there. So you can tell based on the icon that's there and the color, but then you can of course tell by the artwork that is just literally right above it. And then small little details like that. So that brings me to another thing that I thought was neat with this card, or with this game, is the back of the cards. Now I want to be able to show you, because usually you see this on the boxes, right? And you see Kickstarters that they upgrade their boxes to what these cards have. Now, these cards have spot UV on them. And I'm hoping you're able to see that from how I'm showing you here. I have never had a card that had spot UV on it like that. And all of the cards have it. Even so, the back of the cards have it, but also the front of the cards. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it, but anything that's color on these have the spot UV on it. And I just, what? So cool. I think that was the very first thing that I noticed whenever I opened up the box, was that it had the spot UV on the cards. And again, like the drawings on here, it's just little things that, well, not this one. This was a pretty big thing because I noticed it as soon as I opened up the box. But it's just little things that make this game, just the quality and the production of this, just amazing. One thing that I say a lot whenever a board comes that it's double-sided is a lot of the times the board is the exact same thing on both sides, and I would really love to see more board games have different something on either side. Maybe even a training side so that it's a little bit more easier, or maybe another side to a board that adds something different, or just something. So this game does have that. Like I was saying, one side has the darkness, the other side has shadow side, and I think that that just kind of keeps you coming back and playing more because it adds just something else. It's technically and essentially the same game, but it's adding something else to the game. Different. It just feels different. And to me, that is a really great way. If you're going to go ahead and print on the other side of the board anyway, just make it different. So this board does have that. So great. I think that's a plus in my books for this one. Now a negative in my book, so I guess as Nick would say, -2 points, because this game does not come with a player aid. And I feel like if you're going to add names to different phases within a game, I think that you would need to have a player aid so that you actually use those terms. Like this one, morning, late morning, afternoon, and evening. We did not use any of those terms for the different phases that we were playing. It was just, okay, companion time, now we're rolling our dice time, apply the effects on the cards, okay, now I'm moving on the board, basically is how we were playing the game. So I think if you're going to add names to the phases, then maybe include a player aid, because then we can follow along with it, and I think it would just be a little bit more easier, especially whenever you're learning the game too. Then you can kind of look at it and be like, okay, it's morning time, so we have to do this, oh, evening time, let's just go ahead and reset everything. So I think that that would have been nice to have added into the game as well. So just those two things, not even have anything to do with the game really, just honestly nitpicking at this point. But yeah, honestly, just those two little minor things. And then something else that I noticed with this game too is the ability to go back on the point track here for your shards of light. So at the beginning of the game, you can go back anytime during the game, but more beneficial at the beginning of the game, because if you're going back to gain some of these reroll tokens here, they're more put together here. So you can go back, and you're not honestly going back that far, especially because you're starting at 10 points here. So you could go back to 0 and essentially re-roll 7 different dice if you wanted to. But once you get to, let's say on the other side of the board here, I tell you right now, I am not going back 20 points just to be able to get one chance to re-roll a dice. And dice are so finicky anyway, right? Like, you honestly can't guarantee what you're going to get, especially if you have to go back 20 points on the track. I'm just not doing it. But I suppose by the time that you get to around the 56 point mark here on the board, you're definitely you definitely understand how the game is playing, and you really shouldn't be going back anyway. So, but I did notice that, and definitely beneficial to use that effect at the beginning. So anyway, this was my review for Glow. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.